From R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, this is The Retirement.
When you retire, if you want an exciting life, you need a boring investment strategy.
Matters.
If you enter into retirement without a plan for income, you're not retired, you're simply unemployed.
Podcast.
Hey, this is your host, Dale Smothers, and you're listening to the Retirement Matters Podcast. My hope is that you will find the information you need in every single show on how to do one of the three things: either saving more money more efficiently, planning better for your future where you can live in retirement worry-free, or my favorite, how you can live a happy and fulfilled life in this life you have been given. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending it listening to this episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast. On this episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast, we go into inflation. We discuss what it is, what you should be doing to plan for it, and how it will impact your purchasing power. This is a good understanding of what inflation is and essentially how we measure it in American economy. But I want you to realize that the understanding of inflation alone is not going to prepare you for the effects of inflation. It takes proactive planning and some adjustments along the way to make sure that your purchasing power is keeping up with the cost of goods. Now, if you are needing assistance in planning for inflation, we'd be happy to help you. Of course, you can call our office at any time by reaching us at 270-600-PLAN. But if you just need a little bit of understanding around what your plan needs to be less impacted by inflation, feel free to give our office an email asking for someone on the team to reach back out to you, or sending us your current plan, and we can take a quick look at it and give you a slight recommendation on adjustments necessary to better position you. The best way to email us, contact@rdswealth.com. contact@rdswealth.com. Now, if you're listening to this podcast and it's the first time you've ever heard it, I hope you enjoy the show. If you've heard the show multiple times and you've not yet ranked our show or given us an honest review, we would be very happy if you could do that. This allows us to get in front of more people, and as our audience grows, the more they are informed, the better retirement can be for them. This is our desire. It's truly our mission, is to empower people to then go out and impact other people's lives. One of the ways we do that is by allowing them to walk away from the stress, fear, and worry of uncertainty in retirement and walk into that retirement living life to its fullest. We enjoy doing that each and every weekend on this show. Every time we bring a podcast to you, our desire is to make sure that you have at least one thing that you can take away from it, either how to save a little bit more effectively, plan a little bit better, or live happy. Any of those three things getting through to you means we have accomplished our objective. So with that being said, if this impacts you in any way, feel free to share it, give it to someone else to listen, or at the very least, make sure that you have ranked us, given us 5-star rating if we are worthy of it, and an honest review. We appreciate you tuning in each and every week. So without further ado, let's get to this week's episode of the Retirement Matters Podcast titled Inflation. What is it and how to plan for it? Good morning to you. I hope you're doing well and you are ready to start discussing all things retirement matters. I have a really good show in store for us this morning. Can't wait to get started on our discussion around what's going on with inflation, how we should be handling that, and what's going on in the stock market right now and how you should be addressing that depending on where you are in your retirement journey. We're going to get to every bit of that in today's show. But before we get there, we're going to the pause for positivity. Now, this section of every episode of the show is designed to get you thinking about positive thoughts. We'd like to say we're going to pause for the positivity that we should all be recognizing. And one of the main reasons that we started this section of the show is because there's far too much negativity out there that is, it seems, turned up and amplified, especially this year. With an election coming up, there are many of things that the media likes to divide us with. They're always bringing negative news. And I guess the old adage of negative news sales or bad news sales, it makes sense. You get a lot of people that even have what we call clickbait on their website to get you to click on their article. And then when you read deeper into it with context, it's not nearly as bad as what the title said. But what we want to do every single week is focus on something positive. And just a little bit ago, probably 3 weeks ago now, I heard a quote and it stuck in my head, and it's something I want to share with you in this Pause for Positivity. The quote is very simple, it's straight to the point, and very frank, to be honest with you. But it gets you thinking. It doesn't need a lot of articulation. It doesn't need me adding a bunch of stuff to the end of it. But what I will do is set the tone, and then I will deliver the quote. And I hope that this will give you a positive thought in your own mind, in your own right. You can interpret it how you desire. I'm not going to try to interpret it for you, but I'm going to tell you that in the world we live in, there is always going to be something that you could find in some sort of negative light. You could always shine a negative light on the things that you possess, the things that you hear, the things that you live through or experience. There is always the negative side. And conversely, there is the positive side. I've heard it said before that perception is reality, and we live through that. In all things in life, we live through that. Now, I'm sitting here preaching to the choir, and I'm telling you that what I'm about to deliver in this positive focus, this pause for positivity, it's going to hit me as well. I do my best to sit at home at night and, at the very least, ponder, if you will, what has taken place throughout that day. 10 to 15 minutes of my day, I would maybe consider it my journaling time. I'm not as good now as I used to be at writing it all down, but I'm thinking about what happened throughout the day. How could I have handled things differently? How could I have perhaps perceived something differently? How could I have said something differently? How could I have delivered my desired message to an individual, whether it be a team member or a client, differently? And a lot of times what I find is that it's all about the perception, and the perception starts at the beginning of the day. So this quote that I'm about to share with you is an impactful one. And whether you do it at the beginning of the day or you do it at the end of the day, I would urge you to apply what you learn from this quote to your everyday life. So here it is. Again, we're going to pause for positivity, and I hope that this brings some positive thought to you. I was watching a sermon, and this sermon stopped for a second, and the preacher turned around and he looks at the camera and he says these words: "What if you woke up today to only the things that you thanked God for yesterday?" Now, in case you didn't catch that, I'm going to say it again. What if you woke up this morning and all that you had was what you thanked God for yesterday? What would you have? That's the positive focus this morning. We're going to pause for just a minute. We're going to think about that together, because I'm telling you, when I heard that, it hit me, and it hit me deep. Because I like to think that I go through life looking for the positive side in most things. Now, granted, there are people in my life who have to rein me in from time to time. And I'll be honest, this time that we share together, me and you together, sitting here talking about things like this, help rein me in from time to time. But one thing that is for certain is that we are blessed to be where we are, no matter what situation we're facing. If you are listening to me on a radio that you can afford, and perhaps even connected to an automobile that you can afford, or you're sitting in a home listening on a phone that's $1,000, and you are listening to me being able to afford those things, my goodness, how blessed are we? So I ask again, without any build-up or without any reiteration of what my thoughts are to this question, I'm just going to ask it to you, and we're going to go to a break right after. And when we come back, we are going to be discussing retirement matters. But for this, let's set the tone for the rest of the week with this one question. What if you woke up this morning having only what you thanked God for yesterday? What would you have? And with that, we're going to a 1-minute break, and we'll be right back with more Retirement Matters after this.
You're listening to the Retirement Matters Show with Dale Smothers. Dale is the founder and president of R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, serving the residents of Kentucky and Tennessee. We specialize in building retirement plans that allow you to walk away from the worry of running out of money. We are happy that you're listening in and hope you find value in this week's episode. If you'd like to listen to past episodes and find exclusive content and full-length interviews, search for the Retirement Matters podcast on the podcast platform of your choice, or visit us online at rdswealth.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter. That website again is rdswealth.com. If you'd like to chat with a member of our team, you can do so absolutely free by calling 270-600-PLAN. That's 270-600-PLAN. Visit us online at rdswealth.com and be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter.
All right, welcome back to the show. I am really excited to get into today's content. We're going to be discussing inflation and what's going on in the market and where you should be positioning money perhaps in these times that we see. But before we get to any of that, I've got to make mention of football season cranking up. I don't know about you, but I really like this time of year. Football is about to start. We've got the fall season coming up on us. The only thing that is what I would consider bad about this time of year is that the days get shorter. It seems like it gets dark so quick. But thank God that we still get to be on this earth. And I guess any revolution around the earth is a good one, whether it's a short day or a long day. It really doesn't matter as long as it's an additional day. We have the ability to shape it the way that we want to, which is a beautiful thing. And the fact that football is going to be a part of some of those days makes the day go by even quicker. Now, I'll tell you, when I think of football, there are a ton of parallels between the sport football and playing for a successful retirement. And there is one in particular that comes to mind that's very easy to understand. It's the analogy that we've actually used in some of our radio commercials. And it is the analogy of standing on the 1-yard line. It's 4th down. Time is running down. There's 1 snap left in the game. And imagine that you have on your team the best running back in the league who is untackleable, if that's a word. He cannot be tackled by anyone until he gets at least 3 or 4 yards down the field. It just hasn't happened yet all season. And you, instead of handing the ball to him to punch it in for 1 extra yard and score the winning touchdown, instead, as the coach, you decide to run a Hail Mary. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with what a Hail Mary is, it is a long pass, sometimes as many as 20 or 30-yard pass. So you send all of your wide receivers out, and instead of handing the ball to someone who would, in all intents and purposes, be a sure thing, you are throwing a long pass. This is the type of analogy that we use to help an individual understand that the closer they get to retirement, the less, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes here, risky their investments need to be. Now, we're going to talk on this a little bit later in the show. But there is no need for an individual who needs 4 or 5% rate of return to accomplish what they're trying to achieve to go out and try and risk all of their money in the stock market in things like technology sectors or in things that are very volatile like pharmaceutical sectors. There's no reason for an individual that is right up against the end zone in, let's imagine in this analogy of football, to throw a 30-yard pass, because if you think through that analogy, even if we complete the 30-yard pass, we're out of bounds. We've still not accomplished the objective. The risk of dropping that pass in the end zone is far greater than trying to hand it to your running back and letting him punch it in behind the big, giant line that you have had all season. Now, if you're not familiar with football, you may not have a clue what I'm talking about. But if you are familiar with football, this is starting to make sense to you. We see far too many people that are invested as if they still have 30 or 40 yards to go, and they're on the fourth down with one snap left. When in reality, when we actually put pen and paper together and we realize where they are on the field, they need just one additional yard. And there are, quote unquote, investments out there that are like handing it to your running back or handing it to your fullback or perhaps even a quarterback sneak, because all we need are inches. We don't even need yards. Now, if you don't know where you are on the field and you just hear fourth down, last play, and we need a touchdown, then you may automatically resort to Hail Mary. But if you know where you are on the field, the play calling becomes easier. And this is exactly what we do when we sit down with someone who comes into our office for the first time. We've got to understand where they are on the field. Now, I'm not talking about how soon they're going to retire, although that is a part of it. But knowing how soon it is that you want to retire is not all of it. We have to understand, how much money do you need when you retire? How much money can your portfolio generate when you retire? And what rate of return is necessary to make that income last forever? This is the type of where you are on the field data that we are collecting with you. It's not hard. It's certainly not formal. It's us sitting down over a cup of coffee. Many of the people that we talk to for the first time come in and they enjoy a warm cookie. In our Campbellsville office or our Bowling Green office, a cup of coffee. We sit down together and just have a conversation. There is no charge for that initial conversation. But in that initial conversation, you have extreme clarity on where you are and where you need to be. And then together, our team works towards building what we call cash flow analysis that shows you how long that money can last and what rate of return is necessary to make it last. So if we get into it and you need a 2 or 3% rate of return, guess what? You have a much higher chance of success than someone who needs 7 or 8% rate of return to make it work. And if that's the case, we want to make sure that your investments are not taking unnecessary risk trying to get to that 7 or 8% rate of return when all you need is a 2 or 3% rate of return. Now, we also do not stop there with just how to invest your money. That's one thing that we do, but that's the first piece of the puzzle. How much income do you need, and where do we need to invest that money to make the income appear? We can help you do just that. The clarity that you get from that first meeting is just like knowing exactly where you are on the field, how many more downs you have to play, and what we need to score to win the game. This is the way that we help a retiree. And from there, we build the right playbook for you to get you into the end zone. All of this is done, again, after that first meeting, which is completely free of charge. No cost to that meeting. If it's something you would like to have a little bit more insight on, give us a call, 270-600-PLAN. We can help you understand what your next steps should be, aka what the next play should be, and who should be getting the ball for you to win the game. So if you're over the age of 59 and a half and you need a second set of eyes on your plan, maybe you just have your 401k or you have a pension and you need to know whether or not to take a lump sum. Maybe you have a lot of money in a lot of different places. We want to help you. 270-600-PLAN will get us set up with the first consultation. Again, no cost to that consultation. We sit down, we know exactly where you are by the end of that meeting, and we construct a plan to get you where you want to be together. 270-600-PLAN. Someone on the team would be happy to sit down with you and begin that discussion today. When we come back, we are going to the word inflation, how it impacts you, where we are with inflation. It's all over the news. It's a buzzword right now. We would love to decipher what it means to you and how we should be reacting to it in our retirement plan. Don't go anywhere. Coming right back after this.
It's 4th and 1 with 2 seconds left in the game. Less than 1 yard separates you from victory. You have the best running back in the league, but your coach calls a Hail Mary.
As silly as that sounds, we see a lot of retirement managers being far too aggressive with your investments when a more conservative play would be a better fit. You have questions, we have answers.
Contact R.D. Smothers Wealth Management, 270-600-PLAN. That's 270-600-7526.
All right, welcome back to the show. Let's jump into the buzzword, inflation. What is inflation? I think the easiest way to understand inflation, if you don't understand it by now, is that prices increase for the goods that you need. I like to think of inflation as time travel. If I were to pull out a $100 bill and I went back in time 30 years, which strangely enough is 1994. Can you believe that? If I went back to 1994, doesn't seem like that should be 30 years ago, and I hold up that $100 bill, I could purchase a lot more things then than I can today because that $100 bill goes farther. I want you to imagine that we could then go from today, 2024, fast forward 30 years in advance and assume that they know what this $100 bill is that I'm holding up, that they still use paper currency of some kind. And then I want you to think how much that $100 bill could purchase at that time. And in retirement, we have to understand that inflation is acting almost as a negative rate of return that we receive, whether we want it or not. Inflation is eating at our purchasing power. It is essentially causing us to lose money. Now, we may not see our balance go down, but we are losing money. A good example of this is if I have cash in the bank and it's earning no interest, and I have, let's imagine, $10,000 in the bank. Well, the reality is next year that $10,000 is not worth as much as it was last year. Even though my $10,000 is the same, the purchasing power of that $10,000 is not the same. That is inflation. Now, we have a metric that gauges what inflation is in the country. We have this measurement, if you will. And I want to simplify this measurement. I want you to understand what it is. It's called CPI, Consumer Price Index. The CPI tells us, based off of a percentage, how much prices have changed. And one of the ways they measure this is by a basket of goods. So I want to talk in real terms here. Imagine that together we went into the grocery store today and we picked up, let's imagine, 100 items. And let's say that when we check out, that basket of goods cost us $400. Okay, now together, we're going to go back next year and we're going to pick up the same basket with the same 100 goods or groceries, and we're going to check out and see what the price is. And let's imagine that we do that together, and now, instead of $400, the basket of goods, same basket, same goods, cost us $440. This represents a 10% change in your basket of goods. Now, since I'm using the analogy of groceries, I think it's easy to see that grocery prices have likely risen more than just 10% over the last 3 or 4 years. And funny enough, the CPI measures that specific metric in the economy. In 2022, I believe, we saw the peak in around August, September of grocery increases at 13.5%. And what that means is that from August of 2021 to August of 2022, we saw a 13.5% increase in grocery prices in that 12-month period of time. Well, if you go to, August, September of 2022, you saw a slight decrease. It went from 13.5 to a little over 11%. But that means that from September of 21 to September of 22, we saw only 11% increase as opposed to a 13% increase. Does that mean prices went down? Absolutely not. I think the easiest way to understand how we measure inflation, which, by the way, recently in June came out showing a 1.1% increase in grocery prices. And you might be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, that's not what I'm seeing at the grocery store. Prices are still staggeringly high. Well, this is measuring against June of 2023. So June of 2023 to June of 2024, 1.1% increase. But if we look at prices and how they've increased since COVID, it's pretty easy to see that some grocery items have increased by as much as 25%. What does that mean for you? Well, in layman's terms, what that means is that our money's not going nearly as far in the grocery store as it used to, and we see that. But if we're not careful, we may misunderstand what it means whenever someone says, well, inflation is slowing, or we saw a decrease in inflation. It does not mean that prices are going back to where they once were. It just means that we're not seeing them rise as high as we once saw them rise. Prices are still rising, and we see this in an inflationary environment. It's easy to understand if I say it like this. Look, over the course of August of 2021 to August of 2022, I gained 25 pounds. But from August of 2022 to August of 2023, I only gained 10 pounds. And from August of 2023 to August of 2024, I only gained 8 pounds. Aren't you glad that I'm not gaining weight as much as I used to? Well, that's easy to understand that I'm not getting any smaller, and I'm likely overweight or obese by now, but I'm not gaining it as quickly as I once did. And that may be something to praise because the trend is going in the right direction, but it's still not something that I should be entirely comfortable with. This is how it feels as a retiree, because as a retiree, you may not have an increase in spending ability. However, if you've put together a plan properly, before you retire, you should consider what inflation will do to your money. Inflation hitting you hard happens because we hadn't planned for it. If we've planned for it, it becomes a little bit easier to weather. In a retirement plan, inflation should not catch you off guard. It's one of the things that we talk to our clients about, and they feel it, of course, but we have a plan for it. If price of groceries goes higher, we get more income. If somehow, some way, the price of groceries goes lower, well, maybe we don't need as much income. And this type of flexibility in the retirement plan provides you peace of mind. We help clients build those types of retirement plans. Understanding how inflation is going to impact you will help your money last as long as you need it to. So we're going to go to a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss how you should be planning for retirement income and inflation and the negative power that it has over your money. So if you don't have extreme clarity around that, hang out with us for just a minute. And when we come back, we're diving into that topic right after this.
Thank you for listening to Retirement Matters, presented by R.D. Smothers Wealth Management. If you'd like to speak with us, give us a call at 270-600-PLAN. And if you enjoy the information in this show and would like to hear more, you can access previous shows by searching for the Retirement Matters podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. We also produce a weekly newsletter. Receive it free to your email inbox by signing up online at rdswealth.com.
All right, let's get into this topic of inflation and how we should be planning for it in retirement. I've got about 3 or 4 minutes here to unpack it, and at least I can give you a good bit of information that you need to start the process. But rest assured that if you need additional help or you need someone to be a second set of eyes for you, we'd be happy to do that. 270-600-PLAN. In planning for retirement income, you've got to map out how much income you need. That starts with a conversation, either with yourself or with someone on our team. You need to understand how much income you need to make ends meet. And once you've established that number, that becomes your baseline plan of spending. That baseline plan needs to be inflated every single year by as much as 2.5% to make sure that you know your target for income is moving. It's moving farther and farther away the deeper into retirement you get. So if we put real numbers to that, that would mean that $5,000 a month, let's say, of income need right now, 20 years from now, maybe as much as $10,000 per month to be able to spend the same way you spend today at $5,000. How do we start with that baseline plan of spending? Well, we've got to realize what we're bringing in right now. One of the main questions we ask is when you sit down with one of our team members, we're asking you this: what do you make right now? I'm not looking for your gross number. I'm talking about how much you bring home. While you're still working, you have a golden opportunity to gauge how much money you need in retirement. If you've already retired, we have to put some numbers to it and figure out this fine balance of what you want versus what you need and how much money you've got to have to make those things appear. Once we know how much that is, we build the budget for now as well as the budget for 10 and 20 years from now. Living into retirement 30 years into the future means that your money's not going to spend anywhere like it does today. And how do we adjust for that target to provide you the same spending power you need as today? Keep this in mind, though. If we target a 2.5% inflation, and inflation goes off the rails like it has the last couple of years, it is likely that you will need to adjust your target number slightly as we go deeper into retirement. And you must keep in mind that you are going to enter into 3 distinct phases of retirement. What we call the go-go years, which is every day is Saturday, you spend money like you've never spent it before. From there, you go into slow-go years, where maybe you just don't get out as much at night because you don't see well. You don't need as much spending in the slow-go years as you do the go-go years. And when you get to no-go years, your spending is less, and most of the spending that you have is for basic necessities, at least until you enter into long-term care planning, and that is a different discussion for a different day. All right, guys, and just like that, we are at the end of the show. Hard to believe that it went so quickly. I hope that you've had as much fun listening as I have being able to deliver it to you. I enjoy our conversations each and every week. You know, we ended there on long-term care planning, and in my opinion, that needs to be a standalone plan altogether inside of your health care plan, but you've got to have an understanding of how you're going to pay for long-term care expenses. Healthcare can be one of the biggest expenses that you have in retirement. And if you don't have your hands wrapped around that, you don't have a true understanding of how in the world you're going to make that happen, and you've got the ability to do it, you just haven't maybe got the clarity around it, give us a call, 270-600-PLAN. We can make that very clear for you as you build the retirement you've always imagined. And I'm sure that you have imagined that worry-free and full of love and fun with family. We can help you make that a reality. 270-600-PLAN if you'd like to sit down with anyone on our team. I hope you've enjoyed this show. And until we talk again, whether that's in person, in our office, or right here across the microphone and the speakers you're listening to us on, have a safe and relaxing Labor Day weekend. And always remember, save money, plan well, and live happy in retirement. God bless.
Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management and RD Smothers Wealth Management are not affiliated companies. Investing involves a risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. RD Smothers Wealth Management is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by RD Smothers Wealth Management.